Fina sat silently at the makeup table, surrounded by whispers and side eyes. Her future sister-in-law sneered. "This isn't even MAC. What is it? Market makeup?" Everyone laughed, but when the groom held the mic later that evening, his words silenced the hall. "Let's all thank the one person who paid for every single thing you see tonight. And no, it wasn't my family." Fina was a quiet woman who never liked being the center of attention. She had a kind heart and a strong spirit, but she preferred simple things in life. When she got engaged to Badu, she dreamed of a small, modest wedding. Nothing too big or flashy. She wanted the day to feel warm and real, not about showing off or impressing anyone. But Badu's family was very different. They loved grand celebrations, big parties, and everything that sparkled and shined. From the start, they took over all the wedding plans. Without asking Fina what she wanted, they picked expensive decorations, bright colors, and loud music, turning the day into something that didn't feel like her at all. Instead of feeling happy and excited, Fina began to feel like a guest at her own wedding. She was left out of important talks and decisions. Even when she tried to share her ideas, the family brushed her off, making her feel small and unimportant. It was hard for her to stay calm because she loved Badu and wanted to marry him, but she also wanted the day to reflect who she really was. Despite the hurt, Fina stayed quiet and tried to smile through it all. Deep inside, her heart was full of love and hope, but on the outside, she felt like she didn't belong. This was the beginning of a day that would test her strength in ways she never expected. From the very beginning, the wedding planning felt like a game where Fina didn't get to play. Badu's family acted like they owned the whole event, making every big decision without even asking her opinion. They held secret meetings about the catering, the decorations, and even the smallest detail, like what colors to use. But no one thought to invite Fina to these talks. It was like she didn't exist in her own wedding planning. Every time she tried to speak up or share her ideas, she was quickly shut down. One day, after she suggested a simpler menu that would please everyone, Badu's sister, Tishe, gave her a cold look and said, "Let the real women handle this." Those words cut deep. It wasn't just about the food or colors anymore. It was about respect, or the lack of it. Fina was being told she wasn't good enough, like her opinions didn't matter just because she came from a different background. Fina wanted to fight back, to say that this was her wedding too, that her feelings mattered, but she held back. She didn't want to cause problems or make Badu's family angry. She loved Badu, and she hoped that maybe, just maybe, things would get better. But every meeting she was left out of, every decision made without her, made her feel smaller and more invisible. It was painful to watch others decide everything for her, as if she was just there to look pretty. The worst part was seeing Badu stay quiet during these family talks. He didn't say much, maybe because he didn't want to upset his family, or maybe because he didn't realize how much it hurt Fina. She felt alone in a place where she was supposed to be surrounded by love. The excitement she once had for her wedding slowly turned into sadness and frustration. Fina's heart was full of hope and love, but the way she was being treated made her question if she really belonged in this family. It was a silent battle, one she faced every day, as the wedding she dreamed of slowly became a celebration that didn't include her at all. On the morning of the wedding, Fina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She wanted everything to be perfect, but perfect to her meant simple and real, not fancy or expensive. Instead of hiring a big famous makeup artist like Badu's family wanted, she chose a local woman from her hometown. This woman was not just a makeup artist to Fina. She was like a second mother who had cared for her and supported her through many hard times. Fina trusted her to make her look beautiful in her own way. As the makeup artist worked carefully, Fina sat quietly, hoping everything would be okay. But when Badu's sister, Tish, came to see her, she immediately noticed the makeup. Instead of being kind, she laughed loudly and didn't try to hide it. "Even the cake is more polished than your face," she said, making sure everyone around heard. The room suddenly filled with whispers and giggles, and eyes turned to Fina. It was like they were all waiting to see if she could handle the insult. Fina's heart sank. She wanted to say something, to stand up for herself, but the hurt made her freeze. It wasn't just about the makeup. It was about being judged for who she was and where she came from. Badu's family was used to wealth, luxury, and showing off, and they saw Fina's simple choice as cheap and embarrassing. But no one knew that Fina didn't choose the makeup artist because she couldn't afford better. She chose her because of love and trust. All day she felt their eyes on her, their silent judgments weighing heavy on her. It seemed like every detail of her wedding was being measured and found not good enough by them. Even though she tried to stay calm, the words echoed in her mind. She wondered if Badu would see how unfair they were being, or if he would think the same way. Despite the laughter and the cold looks, Fina held on to her quiet strength. She reminded herself that beauty wasn't about fancy makeup or expensive things. It was about the heart and the love behind it. But in that moment, surrounded by people who didn't understand her, Fina felt small and misunderstood. The day that was supposed to be full of joy was shadowed by their harsh words, testing her courage and patience in ways she never expected. Throughout the wedding day, Fina stayed quiet, but her ears caught everything. She heard the whispers behind her back, the jokes that were meant to hurt, and the sharp comments that made her heart ache. Badu's aunts didn't hold back. They talked loudly enough for many to hear, saying things like, "Her family hasn't given a single kobo for this wedding." Their words were full of anger and judgment, as if Fina and her family were invisible, or worse, a burden. The hurt she felt was real, but she didn't show it. Instead, she kept calm, watching and listening, knowing the truth that no one else did. What they didn't know was that Fina had been the one quietly paying for almost everything. While they laughed and pointed fingers, she had been saving money for years, working hard and sacrificing her own comfort, just so she could give Badu a wedding to remember. From the very beginning, Fina took care of the big expenses, the beautiful venue, the delicious food everyone was enjoying, even the music that filled the hall. It wasn't easy, but she wanted to make sure everything was perfect for Badu and for the family he came from, even if they didn't appreciate it. No one saw her long nights counting every naira. No one heard the silent prayers she said to make sure everything went smoothly. They only saw the simple makeup, the modest dress, and judged her for what she didn't have, not what she had done. This made Fina's silence stronger. She didn't want to argue or fight. Instead, she let their words roll off her back and focused on the moment, on the man she loved, and the life they were about to start. Even with all the hurt and humiliation, Fina's heart stayed strong. She knew she had done something amazing, something no one else could see. She had shown love not through loud words or expensive gifts, but through quiet sacrifice and hard work. While the family doubted and mocked, Fina kept her head high, waiting for the right moment to show them the truth. And deep down, she believed that one day, all those whispers and jokes would be silenced, not by her anger, but by her dignity and the power of what she had done. As the wedding preparations went on, there was a moment that everyone was waiting for, the final payment to the decorator. The beautiful flowers, the colorful decorations, the chairs and tables all needed to be paid for before the ceremony could continue smoothly. When the decorator came up to Badu's mother to collect the last payment, she suddenly shouted angrily, "Tell the bride's family to pay their share for once. They have not given us anything." Her voice was loud, sharp, and full of blame. All eyes turned to Fina's family, as if they had done nothing to help at all. The room got quiet for a second, but Fina stayed calm. She didn't get angry or rush to explain herself. Instead, she quietly stood up and walked over to the decorator. In her hand was a piece of paper, the stamped invoice that showed she had already paid everything. The invoice had her name clearly written on it. She handed it to the decorator without saying a word. The room was shocked. People looked back and forth, confused and unsure what to say next. Then, Badu's sister, Tisha, quickly grabbed the paper and stared at it like she couldn't believe her eyes. "You paid this?" she asked, her voice low and filled with surprise. No one expected Fina to be the one who had taken care of the bills. The pride in her eyes showed she was ready to face whatever reaction came next. The silence that followed was heavy. For a moment, everyone was speechless. The family who had been so quick to blame Fina now had to swallow their words. They realized they had judged her without knowing the truth. This moment changed everything. It wasn't just about money. It was about respect and recognition. Fina's calmness showed strength. She didn't have to shout or argue. She let the facts speak for themselves. That invoice was proof of her sacrifice and love, a quiet but powerful statement that she had been supporting the wedding all along. The people who had mocked her suddenly saw her in a different light. This small, simple act of handing over a piece of paper was like a spark that started to turn the whole day around. For the first time, Fina was no longer the quiet outsider. She was someone who had quietly made everything possible, and now everyone could see it clearly. After Fina calmly showed the invoice, proving she had paid for the decoration, you would think the family would say thank you, or at least respect her honesty. But no, things got worse instead of better. Instead of feeling grateful, Tish's face twisted with jealousy and anger. She couldn't believe that Fina had quietly paid for so much without anyone knowing. It wasn't just about the money, it was about pride and power. Tish pulled Fina aside, away from the crowd, her voice low but sharp. "You think you're the queen just because you wrote a few checks?" she spat out, full of bitterness. "Don't think money will make us accept you. You're still not good enough for Badu. You'll never be part of this family." Her words were meant to hurt and break Fina's spirit. She wanted to make Fina feel small, like all her efforts meant nothing. But Fina didn't respond with anger or tears. Instead, she smiled quietly, calm and confident. Her smile was not one of weakness, but one that showed she was not afraid. "Let's see who he chooses today," Fina said softly, her voice steady. It was like she was reminding Tish, and everyone listening, that the day was about more than money or insult. It was about love and respect, about who Badu truly wanted to be with. Fina knew deep down that her place wasn't something she needed to fight for with harsh words. It would come naturally if Badu saw her true value. This moment was powerful because it showed Fina's strength. Even when faced with jealousy and cruelty, she stayed composed. She didn't let insults shake her. Instead, she let her quiet confidence do the talking. The battle wasn't over, but Fina had already won in a way by keeping her dignity and faith. Tish's harsh words could not change the truth. Fina was more than just the money she had paid. She was the woman Badu loved, the woman who had made sacrifices no one else saw. And on this special day, that truth was about to shine brighter than anyone expected. The big day had finally come. Fina, dressed in her beautiful white gown, stepped out and walked down the aisle. But the applause she received felt different. It was polite, but stiff, like people were clapping because they had to, not because they truly wanted to. The smiles around her didn't reach the eyes. Fina could feel the coldness in the air, the tension she had sensed for weeks now, filling the room like an invisible wall. Badu noticed it too. His family was there, but the warmth and love that should have filled the place were missing. When it was time for the toasts, everyone expected Badu to say the perfect words, the ones his sister had carefully prepared for him. That script was neatly folded in his pocket, but as he stood up, his hand trembled. The moment felt heavy, like something important was about to change. Instead of reading what he was told, Badu looked out at the crowd and spoke from his heart. He didn't speak about fancy decorations or the perfect color scheme. He didn't thank his family for hosting or talk about traditions. Instead, he said something no one expected. He talked about Fina, the woman who had quietly stood by him through every hardship, the woman who had supported him when no one else did, the woman who had paid for everything to make this day possible. His voice was strong but full of emotion, and suddenly, the room grew very quiet. People looked shocked. Some mouths hung open, and others stopped mid-clap. The coldness in the room started to melt away, replaced by a surprising mix of respect and shame. Badu didn't hold back. He told them about the sacrifices Fina had made, how she had never asked for praise, how she had been the real hero of their story. And as he spoke, the story everyone thought they knew flipped upside down. It was a moment that changed everything. Fina stood still, her heart pounding. She felt seen, not just as the quiet bride, but as the strong woman who had fought silently for this day. The crowd listened, and for the first time, it wasn't about family status or money. It was about truth and love. And Badu's words made sure everyone in that room would never forget who had truly made this wedding possible. Badu took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the crowd as the room fell completely silent. The energy shifted. No more polite smiles. No more whispers. He faced everyone, and then, looking directly at his sister Tisha, he said something that no one expected. "This woman you mocked," he began, pointing gently toward Fina, "is the reason we're all standing here today." He didn't stop there. With steady voice, he told the whole truth. He spoke about how Fina had been the one to save him from a mountain of debt when his family had turned their backs. He told how she had quietly paid for the wedding hall, the food, and even the decorations, all without asking for any praise or thanks. She did this all from her own savings, quietly, so we could have this day, Badu explained. Then, with more emotion, he revealed something even bigger. When his sister Tish's own dress payment bounced and she was in trouble, Fina was the one who secretly covered the cost so Tish wouldn't be embarrassed. "You laughed at her makeup," Badu said, turning sharply to Tishe with a voice full of meaning. "But that's just a small part of what she did. She's the reason you're even at this wedding." The room was frozen. Nobody knew what to say. Tishi's face went pale, and she looked away, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Badu's words cut through all the lies and jokes that had been thrown at Fina for months. He reminded everyone that behind the quiet woman with simple makeup was a heart stronger than anyone could imagine. She wasn't just the bride. She was the one who held everything together when it mattered most. People started to look at Fina differently. The laughter stopped. The whispers disappeared. There was only respect mixed with shame. For the first time, the truth was out, and it was clear. Fina was not the outsider, not the cheap bride. She was the real hero, the one who made this day happen, and no amount of mockery could change that. The room fell completely silent. It was as if time itself had stopped. No one dared to speak or even move. The heavy silence felt like a weight pressing down on everyone's chest. Fina stood quietly, her face calm, but her eyes shining with something powerful, strength and dignity. In the corner, her parents sat together, tears rolling silently down their cheeks. They had always believed in her, and now they were both proud and heartbroken at the same time. The aunties who had spent the day gossiping and whispering about Fina's family suddenly couldn't even look her in the eye. Their voices were gone, replaced by shame and guilt. They knew they had been wrong to judge her without knowing the truth. The cold stares and mean jokes had finally caught up with them, and the truth Badu had spoken hung in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Tishi's face was pale, her confidence gone. She opened her mouth to say something, maybe an excuse or a defense, but before she could finish, Badu turned sharply away from her. His voice was firm and clear when he spoke next. "You disrespected my wife," he said, his words cutting through the silence like a knife, "and that will never happen again." Everyone understood what he meant. This was not just about a wedding or a simple mistake. It was about respect, love, and loyalty. Badu was making it clear that anyone who dared to hurt Fina, who had stood by him through everything, would no longer be welcome in their lives. The people in the hall realized that this was a turning point, a moment where things could never go back to the way they were before. Fina's quiet strength had finally been seen and heard. The laughter and mockery were gone, replaced by respect and deep, heavy silence. It was a silence filled with guilt for the hurt they caused, but also hope. Hope for a new beginning where Fina's worth would never again be questioned. And as the silence stretched, everyone knew one thing for sure. Fina was no longer the outsider. She was the queen of this day, and nothing would change that. As the music started playing again, the whole mood in the room changed. Fina stood tall and calm, not because she wanted to get back at anyone, but because finally, everyone could see her true worth. It wasn't about fancy dresses or expensive makeup anymore. It was about her strength, her kindness, and the quiet power she carried all along. People looked at her differently, with respect, admiration, and even a little awe. Badu came over, took her hand gently, and leaned in to kiss her forehead. His voice was soft, but full of pride when he whispered, "I'm proud of you." Those words meant more than anything in the world to Fina. They showed that no matter what others thought or said, the man she loved saw her for who she really was. As the guests watched, something changed in the way they clapped. The applause that had felt fake and forced earlier was now warm and full of meaning. It came from their hearts, celebrating not just the wedding, but the courage and grace of the woman standing beside Badu. Fina was no longer the quiet girl on the edge. She was the queen of the day, crowned not with glitter or gold, but with dignity and respect. And in that moment, Fina knew she had won something far greater than a perfect wedding. She had won her place, her voice, and the love she truly deserved. The room was filled with hope, and for the first time that day, everything felt right. If you believe everyone deserves respect and true love, hit like, share this story, and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were in Fina's shoes? Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire and uplift.